Hello, everyone. I know you don't usually hear me this early on in the episode, but for part 2 of the Book of Denis, we do have some trigger warnings for you. In this episode, unfortunately, we have to discuss death, plague, mass murder, slavery, and violence against children. If this is not anything that you can listen to right now, we completely understand and hope that we get you at the next episode. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in, and we hope that you enjoy listening.
Lore Together is proud to be part of the Boss Rush Games Network. Feel free to find out more at bossrushgames.com/network.
Hi, I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is Lore Together. This is the podcast where a husband and wife team go over all the storytelling, world building, and characters of video games because it's what we like to do together. We lore together.
Yep, and this is episode 134.
Hey, thanks for coming to us with another episode. We hope we are a nice reprieve for this strange time we live in.
Yes. I'm not sure how much of a reprieve this episode will be.
Oh, no, Mystic. Don't make me break promises this early on.
So Safi's not heard the warning that you guys heard at the beginning. So
I have been told that it's not anything that's specifically going to be bad for me. So, because Mystic knows my triggers,
yes.
Honestly. There's just certain things I just will stop.
This will not make you feel good, though.
That's fair. No, you know what? It's not the first time you've done this to me, so that's okay.
Before we get into the episode, though, if you'd like to contact us, you can do it many different ways. Instagram, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Reddit, YouTube, Steam, and Discord, all in the description down below. Or you can contact us via email at loretogether@gmail.com. Or you can visit our website at loretogether.com, where you can also check out links to Safi's writing.
Yay! Yes. So we have Mother Revolution, my debut novel, is out now. P.S. There is going to be a sale on Pi Day. So if you want to get the ebook for half off, basically $2 off a $4 book, you can buy it from any of your favorite ebook vendor on Pi Day, and it should be there. Also, be on the lookout for my one-shots for Gen Con that are going to be coming up, too.
Yep.
Woohoo!
Other ways you can support us, other than buying Safi's book, is through giving us a review wherever you're listening. Thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever it is, wherever you're listening. We appreciate it. The other way is through Patreon at patreon.com/loretogether, where you can pay a per episode pledge to get early access to episodes, exclusive access to some Let's Plays, voting rights in our public Let's Plays, such as Mass Effect 2, as well as the upcoming audiobook read of
Primal Rage, The Avatars.
Yes.
Because since it's on archive.org, I'm going to read it. I want to read the book itself first.
Yes. You've mentioned this. Yes.
And then I'm going to actually do it. But it's coming. It's coming. I cannot guarantee it'll be of the highest quality, but you guys have heard me with my reading of lines when we did
Skies of Arcadia.
So you could get a taste of what that's going to sound like there. Probably a little less anime-ish, though.
Well, also less off the cuff. Skies of Arcadia is not the...
So off the cuff, yeah. So...
All right. We're continuing from last time.
Yes.
Part 4 ended with Atris off to visit the king of Terahnee.
When you said that, why is the skit from SNL like years ago, "Here comes Mr. Bill's dog"? It's just stupid little monotone thing.
You are not referencing a thing I know.
Oh, it was a claymation joke thing of like Mr. Bill, and he basically, it was a lot of like, look at the horrible things we can do to Mr. Bill, and it's funny because he's made of clay. That's pretty much what it was.
Okay, I think I have a faint bell ringing.
And so they would just announce things with a very monotone voice.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, I got this idea of like, here comes Atris's king. Like,
no. So if you remember at the beginning of each part, we do get a passage from a book that's not this one.
And we haven't specifically identified this book yet, right?
Well, they've changed. There's been a couple different books.
Okay.
But this one begins Discordant Time. The smallest of enemies unmans them all. Hidden within the hidden. A breath and then darkness. From the Korok Jama verses 4,302 to 4,303.
Okay. Interesting.
Atris is greatly impressed by the king, and the two actually end up agreeing that the Terahnee and the Dunny must have had some common ancestor long ago with the whole shared language and the ability to write and all that stuff. One thing that still bugs Atris, though, after his travels in this age, is that there's no maintainers here.
Right.
You know, for those of you who don't remember, maintainers are the police force of the Dunny, essentially. Not an exact one-to-one, but close enough.
Mm-hmm.
I
feel like it's more of a peace officer thing, right?
Well, there's no peacekeepers here even.
Yeah.
So he goes, it's amazing that in an orchard as large and vast as Terahnee is, there's not one bad apple. And the king jumps right onto the horticulture analogy as well, saying it's all about breeding for the best results. Which bothers...
Whoa! What? Wait! What?
Which...
What? You can't just say that.
Nope, I'm just moving on.
No, you can't just say that. That was a very violent phrase you just said. You can't just say that. Okay, we are getting into the upsetness very early on. Oh my gosh.
This is nothing compared to what comes later.
I know. It's the precursor to violence. It's a violent phrase because it's a threat right there. That phrase is a threat.
But here's the thing. This phrase also bothers Atris after the conversation, but not for the reason you think.
I'm curious to see.
It makes him question his own people. The Dunny and the Dunny they've rescued and the Averone can all come here with the king's blessing. They can all just come and live here in Terahnee. This is still paradise to Atris. And Catherine and everyone else. Everyone else sees it as a paradise. Atris doesn't want to bring a bad apple into paradise. He is still thinking about Viavis and Agaris. You know, they're dealing with cleaning all that up. Catherine says that they're all good people, and Atris agrees, but the whole idea is still causing him some problems.
Okay, so he's thinking about more of like, I need to tend to my orchard.
Yes.
Not what are they doing to poison the pieces they don't like of their orchard.
Right.
That's not good.
When the king learns of Dunny's fall with the plague in Viavis and Agaris, he is, of course, shocked and saddened, but Atris also detects that he is relieved. It's not until later that Idra says that it was because the prophecies of Terahnee spoke of a civilization being poisoned by a great cloud, and they assume that that was their own civilization.
Oh, okay.
The fact that Dunny fell to a cloud in the cavern obviously is what was spoken of, so the king is more relaxed now. They head back to Idra and Hadre's father, the first landowner they stayed with after arriving in Terahnee. There is a dinner, and the topic of the maintainers comes up again. Why would they need maintainers? Atris says it's to protect people from the weaker-minded. I think by this he means people who would do harm. Weaker of character.
Yeah, weaker of character.
Yeah.
I can understand that. Or like weaker of will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to protect from faulty ages and to stop abusive ages.
Yes.
One guest speaks, saying, but civilized people control themselves so they can be seen. And Atris doesn't understand. The man continues, we write, we live, we control ourselves. We are seen, proudly pounding his chest with each we. Atris still doesn't understand. He's at a loss, and the man continues, self-restraint and the ability to write separates us from the beasts. They make us men. They make us seen.
They make us men?
By that, we're talking...
Okay.
Mankind.
Considering the lines you're throwing at me this episode, I have to clarify.
Fair. The word that bothers Atris, though, baro. It's Dunny. Ba is essentially beast. And ro is something that the Terahnee affix to denote a group of people. Ba, ro, beast people. He's not liking this. Not because he doesn't like where it's going, but it's a riddle he has absolutely no grasp of.
Beast person?
Yeah. He's literally like, if we go outside the cities, are we going to be attacked by people? Like whatever.
This is the problem with Atreus being raised in the vacuum that he's in and being a genuinely good person. One, we have determined that he does not understand that there are people who just are bad eggs that need to be tended to, and hence the failure to his older sons. Two, we are also getting a sense of now that since he doesn't have a sense of history the same way that, say, a person like you and I have, who've been raised in a society who in the context we were raised in is trying to learn from the failures of history.
Mm-hmm.
And I do realize I have to clarify that because there's a lot of questions about if many people have been doing it like they should. But anyway, if you have no faults of history to learn from, you are not warned about the dehumanization process that happens in language that is the beginning threat of violence to marginalized people.
Right.
So Atreus is completely naive to a planned, systematic, prejudicial system. As much as it I'm sure Mystic saw this coming from a mile away. I definitely see this coming my way. I haven't even read the book. This is super clear at this point, and we're just getting past the midway point of the story.
You get hints of this in the first part, but I didn't want to.
Well, because now we've now started the episode with shocking Safi into I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. So during this whole back and forth, this whole riddle game, Atreus does notice that Idra is the only one not smiling, not laughing, and is staring intently the whole time at Atreus, just watching him. Eventually, Atreus gives up. Rogethe, Idris's father, tries to explain it, saying that there are writers and non-writers. The Baro, the beast people, and the Erotanti, the non-writers and outworlders. It's just a clever word game, don't you see? At Erotanti, we get a little bit here where Catherine kind of feels herself go cold. She had not heard that word since Gen used it. It's how the Dunny referred to those not of Dunny blood.
Oh, there it is.
Atreus
trigger. Yeah.
Atreus points out that the very premise of the riddle is wrong, that Erotanti can write. Catherine is Erotanti and can write, and Atreus's grandmother was Erotanti and could write, and his mother was not of Dunny blood either. Suddenly, whole mood changes.
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. We were talking to someone who's not an equal to us all this time. This is bad.
And Rogethe says such things, even if true, should never be uttered in earshot of the unseen. Again, Atreus has no idea what the heck he means by unseen.
He's talking about his slaves. He's talking about his slaves that were standing in a corner. I remember we left this near the end of the last episode, right? That to me, it just feels so obvious. Atreus, what is God? You sweet summer child.
Servants are brought out, and Atreus notices that they all avert their eyes, and the Terahnee literally just look right through them. They don't even recognize that they're even physically there. And he gets this. He clocks it. He gets it. He understands what's happening, and he knows that it's his father all over again.
Yes.
This idea of pure blood so poisons their own minds that they don't see their fellow men as people, but rather as beasts. And that's only when they choose to see them at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... So, okay. This reminds me of... Listeners probably know my mother is African-American, black, however you want to phrase it. And... for school once, we were supposed to interview somebody about, race. And a lot of people chose their parents. And I was like, well, it makes one of the most sense for me because I am of a multi-ethnic background. So there's a lot of interesting things you could talk about when it comes to starting a relationship in the mid-70s with somebody who is not of the same race as you. Yeah. And so my first question to her, I remember, is like, what's been an advantage to it? And she goes, my real name, but she goes, Safi, there have been times I've been in a room and people are talking and they forget that I'm there, and they say things that they don't realize that I'm going to remember because they feel like I should not be seen. And that was like a huge concept to me, but like now that I'm an adult, I can see what she's talking about. And like in this story, we have such a clear concept of those who benefit from these systems are trained to perceive in very specific ways. Mm-hmm. And I do mean trained to perceive. That is, it's why people who have clear prejudice will claim without lying that they are completely colorblind and they can't see it. They have been trained to understand the world in a way where they have very specific blind spots that once they have been accustomed to living this way for decades, take a lot of work to work out of it. And is such hard work to do to the self that a lot of people avoid it and prefer the cognitive dissonance because it can be an assault to your psyche. And there is a pain in having to reflect on your privilege and your blind spots and move past them. And it's hard work that a lot of people just don't want to do. Yeah. So here we have a great example of if you take this idea to the umpteenth level where there is no pushback to the power structures, this is what you get. Mm-hmm. Normalized stratification of people based on pre-contextualized and determined levels of worth. Mm. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to get off the soapbox, but this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy.
Yep. So Atris and his party are ordered to their rooms while Rojethe sends word to the king.
Why are we staying here? Why are we staying here? You just outed yourself as not equal to them, and now...
Yeah,
you're gonna stay here? No, I'd be like, no, I'm gonna go back home. I gotta check with it. Hey guys, we're gonna seal that thing up again. Let's just seal it up again. It is a Pandora's box. We will not talk about it. We will not talk about it. We will just pretend that it never happened. They'll hopefully never find us again.
So Atris is pacing back and forth, and everyone is saying that like we should leave.
Atris, listen. So please, just listen right now.
But Atris says that the king gave his word.
No, he thought he gave us, no, Atris, the terms of the deal have been altered because you are not equal to them anymore. Run. I am literally that woman in the middle of the horror movie theater being like, girl, run. Like, why? Like, why are we staying in the middle of the woods in the dark without a torch? Why are we doing this?
Catherine, as you have just done, bitterly points out that was when they were Terahnee. Now they are Terahnee. It's a wonder that they can even still see us.
Yes.
You know? He wants to stay to try and change the society for the better. Catherine points out that changing the conditioning for one person is hard enough. A whole society?
No, yeah. And you're outsiders coming in.
Yeah.
And you're the minority because even if you brought how many people have we got together now in the remains of
1,800, I think.
1,800 to a whole kingdom? That's nothing. Yeah. That's a gosh. Oh gosh. Okay. No, continue. I don't even want to say what I could say right now.
Atris points out that they have the ear of the king, and Catherine says his ear maybe, not his eyes. She doesn't think Atris can change anything here about Terahnee. Eventually, I'm skipping a few things, Idra comes and takes him to see the Relima, Relyimh. Relima, the unseen. It's literally what it translates to. They actually live in the walls and underground, and now Atris realizes why Terahnee architecture has such thick walls, and frankly, it sickens him.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Literally confined to being... What an interesting symbolism to talk about, like, a civilization built on the foundation of slavery.
Yeah.
Literally.
Idra leads them to Hersha, the Relyimh leader, a secret that the Terahnee know nothing about. He tells Atris that Idra is almost unique. Not 1 in 10,000 care for their people.
Wow.
Atris points out during this conversation that the Terahnee did not have slaves. Nothing like this whole situation was anywhere within Terahnee.
That he knows of.
It is revealed that they are actually slaves from ages that Terahnee have written and have all been trained from early childhood to remain as invisible as possible and subservient as possible. And we're not talking simple re-education. Idra explains that the training ages are the cruelest things imaginable. Boys are ripped from their families and sent to the training ages. Tens of thousands die in a obey or die training system.
I'm speechless, literally, right now. That's.
Idra never learned not to see the unseen. The mental conditioning didn't take on him because when he was a young child, he had a fever and was saved by a Relima slave who found him collapsed in the orchard.
Oh.
The slave was killed for touching a master, and Idra now has full compassion for them.
It reminds me of the story of the abolitionist John Brown, who is one of the most famous figures for Bleeding Kansas in the 1850s, prior to the Civil War. I'm going to be crying now. One of his most defining moments in his life was to go to a house of a family who kept slaves, and he befriended one of the little boys, but the little boys did something wrong and ended up getting beaten with a shovel.
Jeez.
And yeah, I'm just reminded of that moment. Like, there's something about being exposed to the blatant discrimination and injustice at such a young age that just permanently scars your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't say it's true for every person who goes through it, but for many people like John Brown, and in this case Idra, it compels them to do something to make it better.
Yeah. Idra says his people are missing something inside, a void they covered with cleverness and riddles and games and any manner of distractions. When asked why he never said anything to Atris before, he said he didn't know, wondering if Atris was just like the Terahnee.
Yeah.
Atris feels ashamed, fearing Idra thought Atris condoned all of this. Idra says simply, yes.
Wow.
But now I see you.
Oh, okay. So things have gotten intense really quick. Wow.
It's just gonna keep going.
Oh no, guys! I thought the book of Tiana was brutal. I did not think we were gonna have essentially like deadly re-education camps being part of this.
Oh yeah, no, we're gonna get a more visceral description of it later too.
I'm glad I didn't eat much today because I'm probably gonna be sick. This is
Part
awful.
6. The creak of cartwheels in the silent dark. Dead men fall between the worlds. A time of great sorrowing. From the Uruk Nada verses 87 to 89. The next day, Merim comes to Atris. She's found a slave unresponsive in the garden. Atris follows her to find a young boy no more than 8 years old. He's already got scars from the treatment of the training ages. He's unresponsive, and Atris lifts him. No difficult task, as the boy is very light, and brings him to Catherine, who's kind of our scientist in this crisis.
Yeah.
She draws some of the boy's blood and then waits for Iris and Karad to accompany her so they can all head back to Dunny and bring help while she conducts tests.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine feels as if a void is opening up beneath her. The words from the passages of prophecy cast shadow over her, discordant time. The smallest of enemies unmans them all, hidden within the hidden, a breath and then darkness. For a brief moment, she's back in her writing fugue state until she focuses again. For a fleeting moment, she feels connection to something beneath the physical world. Atris, meanwhile, finds Idra has taken ill, but Idra also tells him the sickness has spread through the Relima into other estates, and the Parali, the race that sits between the Relima and the Terahnee, basically the masters of the slaves who are also have all but fled, fearing for their own lives. But the fact that the disease is running rampant through the Relima is strange. They are disease resistant. A sick slave is not a working slave after all. They're all kind of inoculated in the training ages. The Terahnee begin to take ill. Idra's father literally walks his house in a feverish daze looking for his slaves and literally does not notice the dying people or the bodies of the dead as his eyes glance over them.
Yeah, that's... Wow. That is such a visual, but that is like any system that is built on slavery so totally. That's metaphorically what's happening.
Yeah. So Idra's father is not seeing anything, but he does manage to see one dead body eventually, and that is his head servant, the only one he really sees regularly. And he basically comes to the chair and says, what are you doing? And it's like, oh, like even he's shocked.
Yeah.
Like by it now. Catherine returns after her and her team did some tests. It's bacteria.
Oh.
It's stomach bacteria from Dunny. That's not symbiotic with those on Terahnee.
Oh.
Atreus,
They've been separated for... Because there's no way that they're not descended from the same
No,
people.
it's been thousands of years.
Yeah, but this is the same... Gosh, I keep bringing in all my little factoids here, but that's my job, I guess, in this podcast. It's very much why, if you know about the Sentinelese Islands that are right off of India, we don't talk to them because they have been separate from every other culture for so long that we could eradicate them just by having different germs.
Yeah.
So we try not to talk to them ever. They're having happy, healthy lives, being hunter-gatherers. Why not?
Yeah. But yeah, Atreus and his people brought it here. Atreus is beside himself with grief. Mm-hmm. He was told not to come here, and yet he did. What harm could it do?
But it might also force a reckoning of some sorts as well.
Most of the Terahnee die, and many of the Relima as well. Idra's father receives a message via personal courier from the king. Idra takes it. He's still sick, but his father is delirious and on death's door at this point.
Wow.
He tells the men who came to deliver the message about the plague, and they immediately hightail it. Like, well, we deliver a message. Bye. Like,
Uh-oh.
The message is to arrest the Dunny and bring them to the capital to be tried in secret. So much for that.
Oh, jeez.
Idra takes to a mild fever. He takes to bed, a mild fever affecting him. Merim literally cares for the afflicted child that she found until she falls asleep over his bed. Atreus rushes over because it's like, oh my God, is Merim sick too? Because she's not Dunny.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, for some reason they've been fine with a lot
Roll
of the other.
dice.
Yeah.
So, also, if it's from Dunny, like it may not be that big of a problem, but these have been so separated for thousands of years.
Very hyper isolated. Yeah.
But Atreus runs to check and sees her snoring, but then sees the boy, the young child, is awake and like dark eyes staring, and then immediately looks away.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
the child looks away and curls under the blanket. He goes and brings Hersha to talk to the boy, who we find is named Uta. Even at such a young age, every time Merim or Atreus try to get a look at his face, he turns away.
Oh my gosh, that's so sad.
However, Uta is good news as well, for now they know that there can be survivors. Mm-hmm. The king eventually hears of the sickness, but it's not news of the Terahnee dying. It's news of the Relima dying.
Oh.
His advisors say, don't worry. We'll just bring more from the ages.
Ew.
Even if they aren't fully trained, slaves are slaves. What does it matter?
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Well,
keep talking.
It matters when they bring Ymir through. Y-M-U-R. Ymir? Ymir? I'm going with Ymir.
Ymir. Oh, Ymir.
Ymir?
Ymir.
Ymir. Okay. When the Parali goes to whip him, Ymir grabs his arm, twists it, and breaks it.
Oh my gosh.
The Parali's scream is cut short, and the rest of the slaves that are all around him, the rest of the Remaya around him, stare at the body, and then Ymir is just like, come, and they all follow him.
Oh, wow.
Their need for following orders is very strong.
Oh, man. Yeah, because all the conditioning. Yeah.
Yeah. Obey or die.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
For weeks, months. Obey or die. So, days pass. The disease affects all the people native to Terahnee. But the Relima survive more often than not. They're actually only the weak or already sick.
So like the young, the very young, the very old, and
Yeah.
the ones that are like immunocompromised or something.
Their numbers are in the billions.
Yeah.
The Terahnee are devastated. We're talking maybe 1,000.
And how long does this take? How many months?
So it is 8 days from onset to fever to and then death.
So it takes 8 days to get sick, but how long in time of this story is it taking for it to start devastating? Or wait, are we only talking about the Terahnee that are on Idra's and his father's?
No, this is spreading.
Okay.
This is spreading very quick. It's spreading at the speed of a boat because
Oh, interesting.
the only way to really traverse, you can walk obviously, but boats are faster. So the boat that like the couriers from the king took
Are now exposed.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But it's going to take weeks for it to run its course.
Okay. Wow. So interesting.
Yeah. The Terahnee are devastated. Idra's whole family dies save for Idra. He pulls through.
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah. Many more succumb. The king is taken to hiding by his advisors, though his last thoughts as he leaves the throne room is how much he liked Atris, and still does despite
The whole like you're not supposed to be a person thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he is honestly puzzled by it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would be a reality breaking moment, wouldn't it? Oh. Oh man.
Later, Idra is writing his journal, not something he really did before. I believe there's not really a line about it before this. But Atris told him it would be valuable to sort through all of the emotions that he's having to deal with, or at least understand his emotions. Hersha comes to him to say that the Relima are having a meeting, and the leaders wish to overthrow the Terahnee masters, whoever's left, basically.
Oh, okay.
Hersha would like Idra to speak to the meeting to persuade them not to act that harshly. He invites Atris to go with him, and after a trip back to Duni for some supplies, including books of law,
Oh, okay.
Atris even takes Uta with him on that trip, which means Uta gets to travel to someplace that's not a training age or Terahnee. Like,
Yeah.
he gets to see more of the
I told you that
world.
name Terahnee was going to mean something. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
called that.
Atris heads to the meeting. However, now there is a time limit for them to resolve stuff. We're not going to brush on this again, but Master Tegrin, the old guy, says that there's no telling what would happen should the Relmala get through to Duni, which is fair. Right now, they are a wild card.
Absolutely. We have
Yeah.
no idea. Like, and also, is it right for them to try to care and take care of these people?
Yeah.
I mean, or would it end up becoming accidental subjugation again? Because do they know how to exist outside the vacuum of orders?
Right. But we will get to those.
Oh,
So,
man.
Master Taman will seal off the linking books and the chambers in 2 days if they don't hear from Atris. We do hear from Atris. This is just a point that I wanted to point out, that this is a thing that they're worried about.
Yeah, that's fair.
Part 7. Descending the great ladder of time, we see 4 faces. The faces of 4 women. Aged and dead are the first 2. The third, a dreamer. The last, a teacher. From the visions of Jo Irema, Canto 157. At the meeting, Ymir is introduced as a leader of the Relima of the Rotanik estate. When Hersha says Rafis was leader, Ymir simply says, he was. And now I am.
Okay. Interesting.
Atris watches, noting how all but Hersha can't look each other in the eye. They are always averting their gaze, even Ymir.
Oh, wow.
However, Ymir notices Atris and Idra and argues he will not hear them. Just as others have not seen you, Emir, comes a retort from Gat, an ancient and revered legend of the Relima. Like, to the point that Atris thought that this was just a mythical figure they had conjured up. He didn't know that he was an actual person.
I mean, that tracks considering how those people live. Yeah.
Yes. Gat begins with sharing how he felt being ripped from his parents and then speaks to the audience. Like you, I have pretended to be nothing, to bleed and suffer and be silent, to exist for work and yet not to exist at all, to live without love or recognition. All this I did, not choosing to do so, but because I had no choice, and found that the force of life in me was stronger than the desire for death. It is that which makes us slaves, that choice, when all other choices are denied, to carry on.
Can we get that printed on our house somewhere? Like that is some profound.
Yeah, I didn't want to quote the whole
introspection.
speech, but essentially he goes on that now they are free. He implores them to look at each other, meet each other's eyes, and see the pain that they have all endured, and yet they can't. They can't look at each other in the eyes. They all avert.
One of the things that you have to do if you're going to essentially shackle people is to isolate them. And one of the things that you could do for long-term isolation is to get rid of their sense of community. Because, human to human, you look somebody in the eye and there is a connection there. Even if you don't like the person, there's kind of an acknowledgement of each other's humanity to a certain extent, with rare exception. And with severing the ability for them to connect even in that way, to share a glance, which is one of the most basic ways that you connect with somebody, to share a glance. I mean, whole books have been wrote about sharing a glance. Let's be perfectly honest. It's kind of a profound. It's a very profound idea of essentially like speaking to metaphorically the ills of the world, where isolation is the tactic to continue painful, horrible, immoral power structures.
Right. Gat says that his goal, or that the goal, is to look and see and to be calm. Ymir gets up and echoes what Gat says, adding, but not until after the masters are dead, and that means every single last one of them down to the children.
Whoa, 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 whoa. The children? The children.
Yeah. Because his thought is, they'll just bring more people to subdue us if any of them are left alive.
The children? The children.
There's not a lot of mention of Terahnee children after this point. I think a lot of them probably did not make it through the plague to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty intense plague. But, like, I'm sorry.
Emira has a bit of a vengeance problem. For good reason.
That's
I'm not going to blame him.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand. Like, I feel like in any revolution, there are the ones that are like, we need to get back at them.
Yeah.
And then there's the counterpoint of like, but do we really? Like, there's always that push-pull.
He ends by saying that he, for one, will pluck the master's eyes from their heads.
Yikes.
There's a lot of eye stuff, which makes sense.
Well,
considering,
the sight thing, yeah.
Idra is then called and actually says Ymir is right. His people do not deserve to live, and that no words of his can wash away the shame. Indeed, he would give up his own eyes were it to help. In the end, this idea of vengeance versus moving on and trying to build seems to be the one thing that doesn't unite these people.
Oh man, don't bring them back to the other side. Okay, let them have their revolution where their home is, where they can knock down the walls.
Idra says that vengeance is one thing. There are over 1 billion Relima. Vengeance doesn't feed them, doesn't take care of them.
Right.
Ymir says that they will take care of themselves, elect their own leaders. Keep in mind, the Relima only know the job that they individually did. You do have ones who have the ability to write. You have scholars and scribes because that was their job.
Oh.
You have people who take care of gardening. You have
No,
people
when
who
you
take-
say write, you just mean regular. You not like the art, but more
right,
like
yeah,
to write.
copybooks, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
And you have people who know how to cook, people who know how to clean, people who know how to tend crops, who tend animals. The problem is that they don't know how to orchestrate or plan. They were intentionally kept from being able to do that.
Yeah, it's very much siloing where they work
Yeah.
entirely with one trusted master of a very specific, different cast of people doing it.
Those who broke free, like Gat and Hersha, are the exceptions, only because they have been free for long enough to start to break down that conditioning. Mm-hmm. I should point out, Gat is blind, but half the time it seems like he can see. It's weird.
Well, I mean, there's levels of blindness too. He might be able to see like inky shadows or
Yeah.
something like that.
This doesn't mean that the Relima are not intelligent. They are
No,
just
that's
conditioned
not
to
it.
not act on it.
Right. Yeah, there's a very profound traumatic severing of the self happening there.
Yeah.
And the severing of one from being connected to the world out around them. It's impressively horrific what they've done to
Yeah.
these people.
Yeah. No, yeah. They Idra's in the right. We were complete monsters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm not saying that murdering all of them back is the right answer.
Yeah.
But I can understand where Ymir's coming from.
Yes. Ymir says that they can go home when they kill all the Terahnee, which Gat asks, where is home? Home is here on Terahnee.
Yeah.
Going to split the Relima on unknown ages that they were ripped from, ages that can't provide for the amount of people here. Mm-hmm. The leaders, not Ymir, obviously, ask Atris for help laying guidelines, lay laws. Don't. Atris
just believes in the good of everybody. Do not ask him to write a law. I'm sorry.
Well, that's why he brought the Dunny law books.
Oh,
Like,
gosh.
yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was going to say, don't have Atris write it. He's not going to know what like checks and balances really look
But
like.
essentially help them craft laws that can help their people start on the right foot. Because right now their culture is a 1 out of 10. They have some religion. Mm-hmm. They have some stories. That's it. Because they were denied everything else.
Yeah.
So basically help us, work with our scholars and scribes, and let's figure something out. And they're not asking for an edict on high. They're not asking for a new master. They are asking for guidance.
I mean, that's good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's progress. That's a lot of progress for them.
Ymir is having none of this, though. He doesn't trust Atris, another master from the Dunny. They're like the Terahnee. They share the language. They share the writing. It's the same thing.
Wow. Okay.
Uda steps
That's
between Ymir and Atris, shaking like a leaf.
fair. Oh.
Scared out of his mind, but resolved. He says Ymir is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Atris is their friend. Atris helped him. And Ymir's like, he was immune. And Hersha points out that was before he knew he was immune. Atris
Yeah.
was helping the sick, doing what he could before they knew that they couldn't get it.
Mm-hmm. But Ymir is hanging on to this anger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's sometimes things happen to you that are so profoundly unjust that the anger is so righteous. It's hard to let it go. It's almost comforting to have that moral compass, and it feels like it just needs to be justified. And there comes a point where it's like, yeah, but you're now leaning to vengeance, and vengeance is not a way to live. It does not soothe you the way you think it does.
No, vengeance is usually a momentary act. It cannot be your day to day.
There's too many. Just as somebody who is into true crime and briefly listened to way too many true crime podcasts. That was like grinding my teeth while listening to it. I have to say that there are a good number of people who feel like when they enact their vengeance and then afterwards realize, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to feel like. It is very empty and unfulfilling and leaves you wanting.
Uta looks at Hersha and calls out in a weird incantation-like cadence, what ails the sickly child? What stranger comes? What words will follow, spoken by sleeping tongues? Atreus senses something change in the crowd and notices that everyone is looking at Uta and him in awe. Because this line is one of the few things from their religion.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, basically those books of prophecies that Catherine was kind of paging through, they have a copy and they have more lines.
Mm.
And some begin to prostrate themselves before Atreus, and Gat's like, nope.
No, we're going to stop this right now.
And simply says that they will follow the guidance of the laws, and even Emir agrees after this incantation.
So there was some prophecy that Uta probably...
Yes.
Okay. And then...
Yeah, the lines come from the Korach Jama, which we've referenced a few times already.
Mm-hmm.
It's a book of prophecies, and Atreus is quick to dismiss all of this, saying there are many things that could fit those lines.
Yeah, it's like Nostradamus' predictions.
Yes. We eventually also find out that there are female Relima.
I was going to say, where are they?
They are kept completely segregated from the males, to the point, like, they don't even have a word for segregation.
Oh.
They just...
They're like, it is what it is. This is woman's space. This is man's space.
Not just to that. When Catherine finds out, she's shocked. She's like, there are female Relima? Like, because you can have a monogendered race.
Yes, you could.
And even more shocked to find that even looking at the opposite sex was a death-worthy offense.
Connection with another human being is punishable by death. Yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense. Yeah.
As such, the Relima have absolutely no social cues between the sexes.
This is going to end poorly.
Catherine's the one who's going to take on that challenge, but also brings up, during this conversation of the sexes, Merim and Idra, because Atreus and Catherine have both noticed they spend an awful lot of time together.
Oh, interesting. All right. Okay. All
Idra-
right. I missed that subplot. We did not talk about that subplot entirely.
Idra is still grieving, not his family, but that he lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like a survivor's guilt, I imagine.
He's not better than the others, he claims. Merim says otherwise, but he tells her he knew the pain and did nothing.
But what were you going to do with that, Idra? One of many? Like...
Well, he drives it home. He goes, remember that game we did? The maze? The rooms that were moving around? That was the Relima moving rooms on, like, big
Oh my god.
turntables and stuff.
I totally forgot about that.
With 12 seconds when they played to move the room. Moving it quickly. And there is no chance for a mistake. So I didn't cover this, but in when they first are being entertained at Idra's father's place, there's this big kind of acrobatic performance. One of the Relima breaks their leg, silent, doesn't say a thing, is still severely punished, and I forget who's talking about to him at that. It's not Merim at that point. Maybe it is. No, I think it's Catherine. What would have happened if they cried out? Dead.
Wow.
Yeah. So he goes to Merim. He goes, how does it feel that our little race likely caused the death of several slaves trampled underfoot? And she's horrified, of course. And he goes, how would you feel if you lived with that anguish and anger so long that you became numb to it?
Yeah. I mean, God, what a cruel thing to do to your guests. You have participated in murder without knowing. That's just, that's awful.
Yeah.
And
of course, Idra doesn't know at that time what to make of it at all. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't like it, but again, he is 1 in 10,000.
Well, that's why he was trying to negotiate the time. He wasn't
Yeah.
negotiating the time for Mirim's sake or for his pride. He was negotiating the time for the sake of the Relima.
Because you remember, Merim says 10 seconds.
Yeah.
He says 15.
He's trying to give them a break. He's trying to
give them at least more time.
some time so they can live. Oh, gee. Oh, my gosh. That is... Look, Idra and Merim may become an item. But if somebody that I was becoming friends with was like, P.S. that maze murder game is a murder game. Did you? Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't mention the murder part before. I'd be like, I don't know if I could see you the same way ever again. Like, this is horrible.
This is only one scene of many of theirs. We're not going to cover a lot of it.
Yeah, it's a romantic subplot.
It's a romantic subplot where there's a lot of other moving parts beyond the romantic subplot.
Yeah.
They are an item. Mm-hmm. We'll leave it at that.
They are officially becoming an item. Okay.
Yes. This is the one scene where it kind of isn't just like them being together. It's draws into focus more of what is the world state. So.
Oh, okay. Interesting that you would think they could have a lot more conversations that
they have more.
That is about the world state and the situation without it just being about like, oh, hi, haha, yeah.
I didn't include them all. How long do you want this to be? We're
No, it's fine.
we're already going to be more than our usual episode.
I know. This is a lot.
And this was the most emotional one, I thought.
Oh, that's fair.
So
yeah.
Eventually, Atreus and Gat go to bury the king.
Wow.
The last king of Terahnee. Gat's like, we're gonna bury him. We're gonna see.
So
yeah.
Gat's the peacekeeper,
Yes.
essentially.
Gat wants to move past all of this. He wants to start a civilization. He doesn't want to wallow in whatever.
Yeah.
As they travel, Gat laments that change may be coming too fast, though. You know, his people are conditioned to obey, and they're being given a lot of freedom really quickly.
Yeah.
Atreus counters that anything less is denying them the life that they deserve, and that the risk is part of living.
That is true. The risk is part of living.
Gat points to the statues and the monuments of the Terahnee as they float downriver. Atreus says, tear it all down. They're not talking about the houses. They're talking about like the monuments. And
Yeah,
other
the
things.
monuments, yeah.
And he goes, you can't live in the ruins of the past, which Gat says is what Atreus is trying to do back on Dunny.
Huh.
And for the first time, Atreus thinks maybe that was the wrong choice.
Yeah, but it feels different.
It feels different, but at the same time, 1,800 in a Dunny in the space meant for 2 million is a weird psyche trip. It's going to play with your mind, no matter how well you do at it.
Yeah. Then every room's a graveyard.
Yes.
In theory.
Yeah. Every room's a graveyard. Every ghostly handprint on a book, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I understand it to a certain extent, but also, I don't know. It doesn't feel the same because in the case of the Empire of Terahnee, it was the Relima were what's stolen, and in the case of the Denis, their way of life was stolen from them. Like, also, I remember we were talking about that there were supposedly and before they wrote the Book of Tiana, there was this idea of an underclass that was not, and they never really built that up in the Book of Tiana.
There was a slight class structure where the poor had public ages they could access, and that was it. And the upper class and the guildsmen and stuff had their own family ages and their own personal things they could get to. Because remember, everyone in Denis was literate. Not everyone could write and do the art.
Right. But I think...
So you have a class structure based on basically artistic ability.
Uh-huh.
You know?
And I think for me, when the strife amongst the classes is not profound, like we don't have it didn't feel like that there was a lot of talk of, now of course we were focusing mostly on those that were of privilege, so we might not have known about any huge homeless or underserved populations or huge needs being unmet.
I mean, we do get hints. So we are doing, again, because we do broad strokes even on our two-parters, there are discussions in Book of Tiana about Agarus spreading his lies through the disenfranchised class, like they're like the lower classes, the workers, the whatever. So there is still a class structure there that is probably more harshly divided than you're thinking. Again, most of the things we see in Book of Tiana are upper class. Atreus and his family are guildsmen. Tiana is an outsider. She's about the only one who actually even cares about the lower class. But that is one of the big things about her, is that she does care about the lower class, and everyone else is kind of like, well, we can help them, but that's it. Like it's lip service, and she's like, no, we have to do this.
Right, exactly.
So there's definitely been a class thing that we've kind of avoided. Here it's very stark.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Because that class delineation is not this, it's not as stratified as it is in Terahnee. It doesn't feel, the horrific end and then the inability to let go of what was lost doesn't feel nearly as profound. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't built on suffering in quite the same way. I mean, it was ended in a lot of pain and suffering. So you could draw parallels in that regard. But I think if I was Atris, as much as what Gat says would ring true, I think I would be able to justify what I was doing.
I mean, there's still also the amount of work that they have to do in Duni to make it livable.
That part is a fair point.
Yeah.
I think that's an extremely fair point.
Yeah.
And they don't have to stay where everything had been for ages.
Right.
It's true.
Anyway, when they find the king, he has a book on him, and none of the Relima. So like people like Relima did find the king and didn't like desecrate him. Like the people who took care of the king found the king and basically dressed him and left him. And Atris sees the book and it's like, they want to check the book. They're like, no.
Oh yeah, they're not supposed to look at those books.
Atris looks at it and finds out that it's made out to him. And it's a history of how Terahnee came to be. Like all the stuff.
Wow.
It's a final gift from someone who might have been complicit or a prisoner in his own culture. Atris doesn't know, and at this point never will.
And therein lies, in some ways, a distinction without a point, right? He is still a tool of oppression, regardless of if he did it with purposeful malice or not.
Right. As they attend to the king, word comes that the Parali have sent an army from their home to retake Terahnee, because they're from a separate age as well.
Right.
Atris says, put Ymir in charge. He wants to fight, let him.
Mm-hmm. That's fair, yeah. Focus that anger in something productive.
The Parali are efficient, though. Quickly, they have subdued 800,000 Relima,
Oh, no.
penning them up like cattle, which...
Oh, jeez. Okay. Well, all right, we're going here now. Well, okay. Oof.
Ymir, though, is equally as effective, running guerrilla attacks on Parali bands and patrols, and Ymir himself is fighting and killing with a long butcher's knife.
Wow, that's an interesting weapon.
With only days to plan for the bulk of the force, Ymir sends Uta to Atris to ask for liquid fire, which I think means something akin to gas or...
Yeah, either gas. I'm thinking like Molotov cocktails or something.
Atris, meanwhile, is setting up mazes of traps in the capital for the Parali.
That's fair. Mm-hmm.
When asked what if they don't come into the trap, Atris says, then they don't. And we burn their food.
That's fair.
Basically, there are many ways through a fight. And
Yeah.
Atris is going to try to avoid a head-on confrontation because that's not his style. But he'll set up traps. He'll set up like stuff for people to fire upon, but he's not going to do a head-on fight.
Mm-hmm.
Ymir has set up his liquid fire not as an attack, though, but as a deterrent to his own forces.
No. Wait, what?
Yeah.
What?
He knows many of them will find it difficult to fight. Basically, they will desert and switch if there is a clear order given, because it is so ingrained in them. And he is therefore prepared to injure or kill his own soldiers if it will then give them cause to keep fighting. Like, it's not going to be a surprise. It's like, these are here. So, the fight to take the Parali camp is brutal, but the Relima are victorious. The leader, the Pa-Ro, I don't know how to say it, P''A''R''O. The apostrophes always throw me.
Yeah.
If there's just one, I can do it. It's when there's two. No.
Paro. I
Yeah.
don't know what the apostrophe is supposed to delineate.
Yeah.
So
But the leader of the Paro is taken by the group, and Ymir tortures him, basically gouges his eyes out, but doesn't kill him.
because that's the. Oh my gosh! You're like, but he doesn't kill him.
No,
he
not
he
no.
puts him through horrible pain, but he
Oh,
doesn't kill him.
This person will end up dead in short order. It's just not yet.
Okay. Oh wow. All right.
Because first, Ymir is going to swing his band towards Hidara, the place where the Pirali age is kept,
Oh.
meaning to close that link forever, and also raise the compound, essentially, because this is one of those training areas.
Oh no.
Hidara is terrifying and sickening. Literally, we are described the smell of millions who passed through its halls, many dying and left to rot as warning to others.
That's no, millions.
Yes.
Oh my.
Keep in mind, there's 2 billion Relima. They don't breed here. They don't have children here. They are all brought here from other ages and kept segregated. So millions is not hard to imagine given those numbers.
But to convince yourself of the need to keep that many corpses around,
Right.
that's horrific. I keep
No,
saying
very
the
much
word-
so, yes.
I keep saying horrific because I couldn't imagine the terror of being brought there and then realizing that
at
you're
4
there. Yeah. Oh,
or 6,
Oh.
like as a young kid.
so basically as young as Gen's being,
Yes.
dealing with his stuff. So they've kept that age, but as a qualifier for training. But this is just, oh man, this is
Yeah. Uta and Ymir are walking through these, both discussing the horrors they witnessed as kids. And it's clear at this point that Uta admires Ymir's strength and resolve,
yeah,
which is fair.
fair. That is fair.
They raise the place. And then Ymir is sitting in the vacant Pa'aro throne when a message arrives from the other Relima leaders. They thank him for his courage, because they had sent him to do the fight, saying that there will be a great feast upon his return. Ymir, who his army calls master now,
Oh no.
is incensed. He takes this as if he's a lackey for the other leaders doing their bidding,
Oh no.
and it enrages him. And so he
Oh,
sends
no.
a message back that for the safety and security of all Relima, he will rule himself.
So he's decided he's king now?
Yes.
So because he got an invitation to dinner?
Because he's insulted that they are, the words in it make it sound like, you did a good job, we're going to have a feast for you.
I know you're trying to make that sound patronizing, but
That's
like,
how he's taking it.
but that's like the finale scene for so many fantasy stories.
No.
They're like, yeah, there's
No.
a feast.
Yeah, I get it.
To be so profoundly damaged that celebrating your victory is considered a punishment. I
Yeah.
just couldn't imagine.
Ymir's camp now has him on high. He's ordered all of his people to avert their gaze from him. He's the strong man who makes the rules for his people, not these dunny rules handed down from yet another master. He hears that the elders are amassing their own army, 80,000 strong, to his, I think 500,000. Atreus, of course, has no wish for this, but he is staying to try and help and resolve things.
Oh, man.
Atreus is being Atreus.
Stop it, Atreus. Just look, let these people have their own cultural differences figured out. All right. And it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. It's like nobody wins. Nobody wins after you subjugate people this long. This is an inevitability. I mean, I get what I understand. Atreus is just this bleeding heart. He's got to make it right.
Yeah.
No, you don't. This is not your strife.
Well,
let them have it.
He's about to get involved because Ymir
No.
sends Uta to the elders with a message saying that if they wish to avoid their own destruction from this overwhelming force, they will send Atreus to him.
No, okay. No. Wow, no. Okay. Wow.
That's a non-starter. Even Atreus isn't that naive. And
Yeah.
so when Uta returns with Atreus' reply, he's walking up and he's struck by the silence of Ymir's very large camp. The people are withdrawn. The Dunny had talked a lot while Uta was with them, always talking, laughing, expressing themselves. They urged him to talk, especially Catherine and Merrim. Yet here his people were as they were before, silent, withdrawn. He sees Ymir's large tent, a palace unto itself, with golden banners towering on a rise above the lean-tos and threadbare shelters. And for the first time, Uta feels that he can really see.
Oh man. And that is why we say vengeance is a very empty feeling. Ymir got exactly what he thought he wanted. And it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough. He talked himself into becoming what he hated.
The next day, there is no attack. Ymir's camp is silent. Atreus and Gat and a few of the army move on to investigate. Camp is deserted. And in the center, they find two corpses, Ymir and Uta.
I knew Uta wasn't going to get out of this. That was as soon as he came back and it was silent, I'm like, poor Uta is done.
And the two of them obviously fought and both died in that fight.
Oh, wow.
Atreus is grief-stricken.
Yeah, this child.
Yeah, tears on his cheeks as he tells the others to gather the Relima. And looking at Uta says that there can be no more of this. It has to end.
Atreus, it's not your fight. It's not your fight. It's not your fight. Get away. It's like, let them. This is just. Okay. So there's a YouTuber I watch that goes through systems theory, and it's supposed to be for family systems, but he's also applied it to like cultural systems. He had a podcast, when we went through the protests in 2020 about how, there almost always is a group that has to at least convey what is broken and wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like what we're seeing right now. But yeah, like sometimes cultures have to go through it, right? Sometimes something that's sick needs to have a fever.
Yeah.
And there's no getting around it. You can hydrate, you can take pain relief, you can take fever reducer to a certain extent, but sometimes you just have to burn the virus out. And Atreus is not. I should say, he should not be the salve for this. He should not be the poultice that solves this issue, solves this sickness. He can't. He can't be.
He isn't. Uta was. There is no, it is deserted. Nobody has picked up the banner from his whole group.
Right.
Nobody has continued on once Ymir is dead. They all deserted.
Right.
But they still need to have, a plan. They need to have, that's where Atreus is good at. He's good at the plan.
That's true. That's true.
So, part 8. He who numbers but does not name. It is he who heralds the coming tragedy. His footprints lay about the muddied pool. From the Ejima Terak, Book 4, verses 3,111 to 3,114.
Why does that sound like Gen?
Because it entirely is Gen.
Yeah, that's okay. That's completely Gen. Okay, I just want to make sure I clocked that right. All right. Jeez.
Yeah, and if you didn't clock the one earlier where we're talking about the 4 women, we're definitely talking about Atreus, Aitrus's mother, and then Tiana. The third is a dreamer, which is Catherine, and the last is a teacher, which is Merrim. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I was struggling to figure out who the fourth woman was, and it was Atris's mom, whose name I've forgotten, and I feel bad for just saying, hey, it's Atris's mom.
And as for the previous ones, a creak of cart wheels in the silent dark, that's the death of Terahnee. That's the dead men falling between worlds is definitely corpses coming through the linking books.
I'm surprised I didn't catch that. That's pretty.
You might actually understand the discordant time. The smallest of enemies unmans them all. Like that is definitely a plague.
Yes, yes. Wow.
So, a year has passed.
Okay.
A new age is written for the Terahnee, now known to be Relishan, as we learned in Myst 3.
Yes.
Some of the Averone are moving there.
Oh.
And Idra and Merim are going to live there as well, and they are already expecting their first child.
Oh, that's so cute.
Atris will not stay. He will visit, as we see, but he says this is their world now, to make as they will, but to not forget where they have come from. For that was the mistake the Terahnee made. They saw themselves as lords, but forgot that they started as men.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine has pieced together what she could from the past year of all the prophecies and books she could find. Turns out that the books of prophecies were a late text, cobbled together prophecies, and not even all of them, from Terahnee, the home of both the Terahnee and the Terahnee.
Mm.
Atris doesn't believe any of this, but Catherine has no doubts anymore.
Yeah.
The link between Terahnee and Terahnee is forever sealed, though even then there is change. Atris is told that the day after the link is blocked, the age will no longer be called Terahnee. They will be calling it Devokan, the Terahnee word for hope. As Gat says, they now work to build a better, simpler world for the Relima and hope to avoid another Ymir through the formation of a council.
Oh, and that is the true continuation of the Terahnee.
Yes. Epilogue. Flowers in the desert, the child's eyes open wide. 1,000 million stars dance in the dark mirror of the pool. From an untitled Terahnee scroll of ancient origin. That is 100% Atris.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking, I was like, we're back at the, yeah, I could totally see that.
So it ended, as it began, the link between ages sealed in stone. Catherine looks through the prophecies and sees the thread through time, knowing they are following a path, but knowing that none of them knows the destination. Mm. From the death of Tiana's father, which led her down to Terahnee, to the fall of Terahnee itself, it was all meant to fulfill a greater good and vanquish the greater evil of what had been done to the Relima. Catherine closes saying she lives with Atris on Tomana, with their daughter Yisha, cousin to Merim and Idra's daughter Anna.
Aww, that's so sweet.
And no more blessings will come to those caught in the path of time. As for Atris, she says, he writes, but does not lead, advises, but does not command. He wonders and seeks to understand. He loves life and quietly moves to the mark that the Maker has set for him. All the prophecies simply link time to time, another quirk of the very art that has touched them all.
Aw. Wow. So that was a ride. I'm glad we're getting off now. Jeez. Oh, man. Wow. I did not expect to freak out so early. I did not expect it, like, literally, like, 5 minutes into you getting into the story being like, wait a second! But here we are. Wow. It's interesting to think about, because this is Rand Miller's writing, right?
Rand Miller with David Wingrove.
With David Wingrove.
And Rand Miller is definitely here's the world, here's the thing.
A world building.
And then David Wingrove comes in and says, all right, we're going to continue on this part, embellish this area, we're going to do this, because he's the fantasy writer. He is a established writer that was brought in to help bolster the we're not book writers of the Miller brothers. So
yeah, the Millers are definitely much more of a, like, here's the vibe.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like Wingrove was like, so in this vibe I see a song, and this is the song we're going to sing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is dare I say surprisingly prescient. There's a lot of stories these days that I keep saying, like, wow, this is surprising. There are so many fantasy stories that have been written in the last 30 years. And I'm like, wow, this feels very applicable. Like, were we just all sensing that this was going to be applicable within our lifetimes? I don't know. But
the old saying, "May you live in interesting times," seems to always forget that it's always interesting times somewhere.
Well,
in the world.
That's true.
So
that's true. And you forget, you call it a saying, but really, Mystic, it's a curse.
Yeah.
May you live in interesting times is meant to be a curse.
But it is always interesting times somewhere.
Somewhere. Oh, man.
And we just seem to forget that there are other somewheres in the world.
Sometimes. I mean, it is a very big planet. We do tend to be very self-centered about that stuff. Wow. And Ymir's story reminded me of a character in my book, but I don't want to say more because that kind of spoils some of the plot in the second half of my book.
It's a bit of a self-serving self-promotion in
No, I'm going to say, like, if you read Mother of the Revolution, you get to the second half, you will probably know who Ymir reminds me of. So that was really interesting to see that. And no, I'd never read this book before I wrote that story. I wrote that story years ago. So yeah. This is great. So we've done all the published out there books.
Yes, there is a lot more stuff to do in the Myst universe. We have Uru. We have the online stuff for Uru. We have Myst 5. They are, there's always threatens of the Book of Marin coming out. So
yeah, that's true. And Cyan seems to be in a pretty healthy place as a company overall, which good for them. They've
weathered some storms.
They've survived the test of time, and as much as and they're allowed to have a somewhat disappointing game like Firmament, but
So I think it's okay for me at this point to kind of unveil a little bit of the meta narrative because it's actually in this book. It's not part of the book itself, but it's in the acknowledgments for the book. The idea of the meta narrative here is that the books that we've read, and Myst, like the games that we've played, are true. They are based off of Catherine's journals that they found.
Oh.
That is the meta narrative, that Cyan is a venture that was... We'll get to more of this when we cover Uru, because it's big in the Uru stuff. But even at this point, Cyan is a venture that was seeded money to make these because of Catherine's journals being found in a cavern. And yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So there's like kind of an alternate reality discourse going on. Wow. So, and then in theory, that means that all the other games that they've produced...
Yes.
Wow, interesting. Okay. All right.
And that's why things change, is because new data has been found to fill in.
Oh, that's a convenient way to rewrite your book. Okay. Very convenient. Very convenient. I'm not mad at it. It's just very convenient.
I mean, it does kind of make it so that the latest version of a thing is the canon version.
True. True. Well, we'll dive in that a little deeper once we can do Uru for our...
Like, actually do Uru as a story. Yeah.
But there was a little bit... We're going to be doing the live stream in Uru.
Yes. So, I didn't really get into it at all. I figured we would save it for the live stream itself. The Great King is not related to Terahnee at all.
I figured there was like the Great Kings are a line that are essentially very much separated from Terahnee.
The Great King, specifically the Great King, like literally that title, Great King, I believe is the 8th king. I forget their name, but they are called the Great King because they saved Duni from an invasion by releasing a plague.
Oh.
But there was this a lot of weirdness about it over time, but that's why we have this tomb to this Great King, and it's not just like an exile or whatever. It is like he was important and had saved Duni. We'll learn more about that when we read in Uru.
Okay.
So,
but we'll touch upon it, I guess, a little bit in the live stream?
Yes.
Okay.
No, yeah, that's what we're going to cover in the live stream mostly.
So that'll be the Thursday after this releases.
Yes.
And
Because the Great King is important in that it is the tomb that we find the Terahnee book in, but it's not relevant to the rest of the plot that we covered.
Yeah, the rest of the story. So
at least that's my read. I could be wrong.
All right.
So our Myst fans and our patrons have
hit us up in the Boss Rush Discord. And also, if you're not able to catch us on that Thursday, feel free to join us on the alternate Thursdays that when we do Mass Effect 2 for now as the live stream that we're playing.
Yes.
And there's no vote for the next.
Nope, we are doing Jack's loyalty mission.
But after that, there will probably be some voting. So patrons will continue to vote on that, and hopefully we can give you sufficient time to vote when life isn't getting in the way. So, wow. Thanks for coming. This is a long one. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. This was a lot. I'm going to probably do a brain cleanse and play some Stardew Valley after this. Yeah, I need a brain cleanse. That was a lot. But thanks so much.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.